Hey everybody, what is going on? XX here with another Master Duel video for you guys. So today we're going to be taking yet another look at our Frightfur variant of the branded Despia deck that we have been using. Well, I guess it is a fairly separate deck from the adventure build. The builds do differ pretty greatly there. This iteration doesn't differ very much from our last build. However, as a bunch of the comments did point out, and I totally overlooked this until I saw it in the comments. People were like, where's your light for Albion? And I was like, wait, don't I have like Valor or Nibiru or like something? And then I looked and, oh yeah, I had to take all that stuff out to fit in all the other stuff. So yeah, Albion, the vast majority of the time we are just sending it to the graveyard to get the effect to add or set a branded spell or trap directly from the deck. However, it is important to also be able to summon Albion, as there are a decent number of times where Albion can enable like an OTK, so you do need a light monster in order to be able to fuse into the Albion. For my light monster, I've decided to go with Fairy Tale Snow. Seemed like a pretty easy choice. It's just a good general light monster to have. You could just go with like a Valor or a Nibiru, or both, like I do with my adventure builds. But yeah, the Fairy Tale Snow, we'd already crafted it for Dragon Link, so I figured, yeah, we'll try it over here. I haven't, used it yet really to summon Albion that way, but of course it is always best to have the, option to be able to play the cards that are in our extra deck. Go figure. How about that? So yeah, otherwise, build is unchanged. We are still playing the same ratios of everything. I really like the ratios of this build. Particularly, I like the Frightfur ratios. I like 2 of each of the Patchwork, the Poly, and the Edge Imp. I think that's the sweet spot. I think that's the right number. I mean, granted, I haven't tried, because I've seen some builds do like 3 Edge Imp and 3 Patchwork. I could see myself maybe doing 3 Patchwork. I'd do a 3rd Patchwork, I think, before 3rd Edge Imp. But it would probably be, yeah, 3rd Patchwork, and then if I wanted to, then 3rd Edge Imp, and then I don't think 3 Poly is necessary. But honestly, I think only 2 of each is really needed, because the Edge Imp Chain itself is really mostly used just for getting the Patchwork, and the Patchwork is mostly just used for generating advantage as well as adding the Polymerization as well. The Edge Imp Chain is also actually pretty useful for discarding for like Lubellion, for example, being able to recur another copy of Patchwork and potentially gain more advantage on the next turn if need be. Definitely a perk to using the engine here. So it is more than just extra combo potential. One thing I will say about this particular variant is that it does allow you to accrue a lot of advantage very quickly. And I think advantage is it's very important in general. Sometimes it's kind of easy to lose sight of that. Like you'll see, and I mean, this is totally valid, and a lot of decks do legitimately win and are good because they do this, but they'll kind of throw out their whole hand and board state to end on 2 or 3 Floodgate or Negate effects, which, is often enough to just secure the game. But at the same time, there is something to be said for decks that just, are able to draw a lot of cards, search a lot of cards, replace themselves when used as resources, just gain a lot of advantage that way. And this Frightfur variant in particular of branded Despia is the epitome of that deck. It kind of feels reminiscent of older school Yu-Gi-Oh decks in that way, where again we're not relying as much as ending on Floodgates or Negates in general, but just more on building a lot of advantage and using Disruption during the opponent's turn to then stay ahead. Of course, this deck definitely does that to a much more efficient and powerful degree than a lot of older format Yu-Gi-Oh decks did that did the same thing, but so it goes. It's power creep and all that fun stuff. So yeah, as far as Frightfur versus Adventure, which do I think is better? Now that I've played, now that we're seeing multiple videos with each build, right? Now that I've had time to kind of play with both builds, like I mentioned in the last Adventure variant of coverage that we did for this deck, yeah, I've been kind of bouncing back and forth between the 2 builds, between each play session. And honestly, it's really close. I think the builds are, for the most part, fairly comparable in terms of power level. I do think that, I don't know, I honestly think, so here's the other thing I've been trying to parse too, and I like to do this with not just Yu-Gi-Oh decks, but just things I enjoy in general. I'm okay, I like to separate, do I think this is good, and do I like this? Especially when comparing 2 things. As far as liking it, I think I like the Frightfur variant a little bit more, to be totally honest. I think I enjoy playing this variant, which I wasn't expecting. I thought the adventure variant was going to be... I do like the kind of like challenge of the adventure variant sometimes, of like figuring out how you're going to make it work to like, you know, get your Aluber effect off, or just get your Brain Diffusion in general, as well as get your, you know, Griffin negate online. But I think overall the Frightfur variant is a little bit more fun. As far as which is better, I do think it's extremely close. It's honestly so close that I don't know if I can still say at this point. I do think the Frightfur variant might be very, very, very slightly better. And when I say very slightly, I'm talking like maybe like 52% Frightfur variant, 48% adventure variant, as far as like which is better, like which is more powerful than the other. It might be even like 51-49, honestly. It's super close. It's really, really close. You know, this is kind of one of those cases where I think it is a little bit valid to say it kind of comes down to player preference. I don't think that's always the case. I do think there are some times where, like, there is just an engine adventure where, like, you know, a deck is better off playing it than just playing a pure variant, right? But no, this is actually one of those cases where I think it's really, really close. And honestly, speaking of pure variants, I do think both Adventure and Frightfur variants of Brain Despia, I honestly do think they are better than the pure variant, but again, not by that much, not by as much as I think most people might think, not as much as like pure variants of other decks, as opposed to other decks that are splashing another engine like Adventure. Pure Brain Despia, as we saw, we played against a couple of them in the last video with the Adventure Brain Despia. The pure variant is actually still like extremely viable and valid, honestly, just as a competitive deck. So like, yeah, I definitely don't. This is one of those decks where like there's so many different ways that you can play it that I don't know that there's any one best one, especially when it comes to Adventure versus Frightfur. Again, I do like Frightfur. I definitely like the Frightfur variant a little bit more, and I am slightly inclined to say is a little bit stronger. But also, stronger is kind of subjective, even in terms of how we're comparing them as far as the power level goes, right? Because, I say stronger, but I do kind of mean just more combo potential, and also just, again, the recursion of advantage. It definitely has those going for it, but, suffice it to say, there is still something to be said about the protection that the Adventure engine offers, and we have seen examples of that in even recent replays of like the opponent trying to Ash a Brain Diffusion. We set up the Griffin Rider first, and we're able to stop that Ash. So yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. This is a very interesting format that we're in right now, honestly. Brain Despia in this kind of particular format right now is just, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of fascinated by this deck, to be totally honest. I think that's why I'm featuring it so much. It's just like, can't get enough in that regard. But alright, so let's go ahead and break down this list card by card, and then we'll take a look at some gameplay here. So we are playing 1 Despian Comedy, 2 Despian Tragedy, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Edge Imp Chain, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 2 Fallen of Albaz, 3 Aluber the Jester of Despia, 1 Tri-Brigade Mercourier, 1 Springans Kitt, 1 Ad Libitum of Despia, 2 Polymerization, 3 Allure of Darkness, 2 Frightfur Patchwork, 3 Branded Fusion, 2 Super Polymerization, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Desginator, 3 Branded Opening, and then 2 Branded in Red to round out the main deck. Extra deck is going to contain 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, 1 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, 1 Predaplant Dragostepelia, 1 Titanklad the Ash Dragon, 2 Albion the Branded Dragon, 1 Despian Quaretits, 2 Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, 2 Mirrorjade the Iceblade Dragon, 2 Lubellion the Searing Dragon, and 2 Guardian Chimera. Alright, so now that we have the list down here, let's go ahead and take a look at some games. So this first game is going to be a good kind of baseline game to jump into, right? This is just going to show off a pretty standard like turn 1 combo, particularly with the Frightfur variant, because there are things you can do with the Frightfur variant that you can't do with others. I am actually planning on making a Branded Despia combo guide, so definitely be on the lookout for that in the near future. I will be covering combo lines with both the Adventure variant as well as the Frightfur variant, as well as, of course, combo lines that you can do with both. So, I'll be showing, like, what to do if you just open Branded Opening, what to do if you just open Aluber, what to do if you open just like a whole bunch of extra stuff, and just all the different, like the priority of searches that you'll do sometimes. Like, yeah, we'll cover it all as we like to do with the combo guides there. So yeah, this hand is looking really, really good. We like opening the Branded Opening and the Branded in Red here. We actually opened kind of the nuts, right? We opened Aluber and a Branded Opening and a Branded Fusion. So like we have multiple ways of ensuring that we're able to get our plays off here, as well as the Frightfur Patchwork. I like leading with the Frightfur Patchwork as a way of seeing if our opponent has Ash Blossom. You know, it's true that our opponent probably won't, you know, usually Ash Blossom the Frightfur Patchwork. We're totally cool with that if they do, especially if we've got an Aluber and or a Branded Fusion in hand. But you know, even if they don't activate in response, activating the Patchwork just to see if they have a prompt to respond with an effect can be a decent indicator of if they've got a Ash Blossom waiting for us or not. Now, it could also be like a Maxx or Dimension Shifter, some other disruption or hand trap effect that could just be used, you know, at pretty much any given moment. But that said, it is still a decent way of testing that. So because we already had the Branded in Red and the Branded Opening, I'm going to actually search a Branded Fusion and put it in my hand with the Albion effect here that I got off of the Mirrorjade. There wasn't really any need to necessarily do it because we already had these searches set up, but because of the way that the turn 1 combo plays out here with the Frightfur variant with the Polymerization, we're actually able to, of course, not only get the extra Masquerade out, but then also reload our Mirrorjade's usage on our turn, right, going into the opponent's turn. So that means we can use its effects during the opponent's turn in additional time that we normally can't do when we are just playing the Adventure variant or playing a scenario where we didn't open like the Frightfur cards, right? But in this case, we not only have the banish, but we can still do the Branded in Red play for the Guardian Chimera, blow some stuff up, and then get back the Mirrorjade, and then do another banish on the opponent's turn. Cool thing about Mirrorjade is, though, even though it says once per turn, that is a soft once per turn, which means it is limited to the copy of the card that is currently on the board. So if it leaves the field and then you resummon it, you are able to use the effect once again there. Alright, opponent's going to go ahead and take their turn. They've got a Pot of Extravagance, so it's seeming like they're a you know, Eldritch maybe, or some sort of like stun variant. I'm not really worried about this at all though, because if it is Eldritch, then, you know, I've got the Mirrorjade in order to be able to banish the Eldritch itself, right? And then we can also just go into Guardian Chimera, and because this particular variant does put an extra, you know, the Masquerade on board, right? We could even go with the Branded in Red. We could go into the Guardian Chimera and blow up like 2 back rows during the end phase. That's also one of the reasons why I like going for Masquerade on turn 1 instead of something like Dragostepelia, is that there are some times when it is very important to blow up 2 cards rather than just one when you're summoning the Guardian Chimera. So I like having the Masquerade because it can recur itself if I use that as a material. Of course, not only that, but also the burn effect is so nice. It's very easy, very easy to win games off of one Masquerade just to like the burn effect. Even if the Masquerade doesn't live and like through the whole game, burning the opponent, just even the burn that it does get in is often like just good enough. So yeah, they didn't lead with an adventure engine here. I actually didn't even look, I don't think, at what the opponent was playing. Normally I like to do that. And then they concede, which kind of just goes to show like the power level of Branded Despia, right? Just given that my opponent like successfully got off an Extravagance into an adventure line and then was just like, oh no, I'm done. Like, can't play against this board, which is kind of just ridiculous, right? Like, I mean, you know, this deck in general is just ridiculous, but the fact that, you know, we can just scare a player who has, you know, about as much advantage as we do, which if you look at our hand and board state too, right, we have like, you know, what is this, 4 + 3 is 7, so like, you know, that's already a +2 on card advantage right there, given that you open, you know, turn 1 with 5 cards and then having a total of 7 on board state, and that's after like fusing and everything. Like, this deck is so nutty. Honestly, this deck is just so nutty. I love it so much. Alright, let's go and take a look at the next game. Alright, so this game is against Flandres. That last game was against Eldritch, by the way. I did look and confirm it, so it was an Eldritch splashing an adventure engine, so okay, taking the first turn against the Flandres here. Looking at our opening hand, it's looking really solid here. I'm going to lead the Springans Kitt. I probably should have actually led with the Aluber, but you know, I gotta be honest, I actually forgot that Kitt's search comes with putting something back. So I mean, here we can just put the Aluber back because, you know, we're not gonna normal summon, obviously, and we are obviously already have our branded fusion, so no real need for Aluber at this point. But yeah, it actually would have been optimal to normal summon Aluber, because that would have searched the branded fusion as well without having to make me put one of my cards back, which again, not the end of the world, but just a little bit annoying, I guess. In any case here, so we're going to go ahead and set up the Mirrorjade play as usual. We've got the Mercourier and the Maxx in hand, so definitely feeling pretty good about this setup here in terms of like, you know, just in terms of how secure my board state is. So, okay, here still looks like they're going to use their Pot of Extravagance. Then moving into battle phase. Okay, so here they're activating evenly matched, right? And I'm going to chain the branded in red. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to play around this evenly, so that way I don't have to, like, give up anything, really. I don't have to compromise, like, at all for this evenly matched. Because, again, like I said, I am definitely flipping up the branded red in response. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fuse the Mirrorjade and the Ad Libitum, go for a Masquerade. And then that'll leave the Masquerade and the face of branded red as the only cards on board against the evenly matched. We can banish a branded red because, you know, we've now used it, and it, you know, at the very least got some kind of use out of it, right? Before just getting banished away by the evenly matched. And then now we can use the Ad Libitum effect to bring back the Mirrorjade there. Okay, so they do have the map. I wonder what they're going to be doing with that. Oh. Let's see, it looks like they're just, what are they going to be doing with that? I wonder what they're going to be doing with that. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So, our pro's going to send the Rabina with the map there after sending the Eaglin. I'm definitely going to actually use the Mercourier here on the Rabina. I thought to myself, like, shoot, it's too bad I can't use it on the Eaglin search. But then I really thought about it, and I was like, no, you know what, wait, I'm actually definitely more fine with using it on Rabina, because my opponent might not even have another Wing Beast to summon, like, in their hand, right? They actually do. They have the Stree here, of the, you know, Flaunderies and Stree. But here I'm actually going to go ahead and use the Mirrorjade's effect on one of these little birds. Probably the, yeah, I think it was the Stree. I was going to say if I recall correctly. So, the main reason I want to do that is because, you know, my opponent's got 4 cards in hand. I know one of them's a Ryza, so the other 3 are unknowns, and, you know, obviously just even knowing the Ryza, I didn't want our, you know, board to get spun away, right? So, but not only that, but by limiting, like, the resources that they have and what they're able to do, we not only make that, 1 card in hand dead, jeez, if I could talk, 1 card in hand dead, if I can speak, but also there's a better chance that the rest of their stuff is going to be online as well, because they've already committed to a lot of plays by this point without having to use any of those cards, so they didn't seem like they're particularly alive at the moment. So, and yeah, sure enough, that is going to give us the win, as the opponent is, you know, obviously not able to summon another monster and then tribute. So, alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Alright, so this game is against a kind of mirror match, but this one is actually against the adventure variant, which is, it's kind of funny, you know, that we run into the adventure variant playing the Frightfur variant, but then we play the adventure variant, then we just run into the Frightfur variant. So, yeah, you know, whatever, so it goes. Okay, so this hand here, we're definitely going to end up leading with the branded opening. As much as I would love to just risk it for the biscuit and just slam down this Allure of Darkness, like, nah, this hand is a little bit too good to be doing something like that, but, in any case here, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and definitely use this Called By against the Ash that's targeting the branded fusion here. And it's going to look like we're probably going to end up having to use our Allure of Darkness as our other kind of discard fodder, rather the discard fodder for Lubellion here. Yeah, so yeah, obviously we'll just send that away. Don't need, obviously, to risk any draws for no reason, or risk losing our hand for draws for no reason, so. Alright, now we can get our Ad Libitum. And here comes the Mirrorjade. Alright, so yep, fairly standard, relatively tame turn 1 setup. You know, this is the kind of setup that is achievable, if I can speak, with pretty much any of the other builds there, because it just involves running the branded Despia engine, just in general, so. Yep, so yeah, they're playing their Albaz here. Definitely gonna go ahead and slam down the Maxx because that's the only way I can really respond, I guess, to that. Let's see, what did I actually end up making here? Oh, that's right, I made the Dragostepelia. Yeah, so the Dragostepelia there, wait. Oh, sorry, I totally spaced out there. Yeah, the note to self, like, maybe I should not be recording super duper late as I am doing right now, but yeah, in any case there, yeah, the Dragostepelia, for some reason, when I was playing this game, I thought I was playing Magic for some reason, and like we could interrupt, chain links, but that's not the case with Yu-Gi-Oh! So I wasn't able to get the Dragostepelia effect in the middle of the chain link there in order to negate the Albaz. That's why I went for the Dragostepelia there, and that is kind of like an oh dumb moment. I was just like I had just now trying to even think of that statement. Good lord. Alright, so fortunately we're able to keep the opponent from doing anything too scary, just setting up their branded in red on the field there. Our Mirrorjades kind of trading for one another is totally fine with me moving into this turn, because I know I'm going to have the momentum moving forward. And even just as I'm playing my Frightfur Patchwork, right, the opponent sees that because they know I have the branded fusion in hand. I'm trying to remember if they know I have the Despian Tragedy too. I think they do actually, but even just having Frightfur Patchwork plus branded fusion is just such an insane setup and can actually lead to a lot of different plays from there. Especially with, Albion being able to put just a lot of damage on board. An OTK during that turn was not necessarily out of the question there. I don't know how likely it would have been based on our hand. I would have to, look at it and study it and just, do a little research, I guess. But I would not be surprised if we would have been able to maybe pull it off there. So, all right, let's go and take a look at the next game. Okay, so this one is actually like a mirror match. This is Frightfur Despia versus Frightfur Despia right here. Their build is a fair bit different. I noticed they're not playing Mercourier, but they are playing... what were they playing that I was thinking about playing? I think it was just like Harvey's Feather Duster or something. But there's a couple of other differences too. Theirs is definitely like... a little more leaning towards pure. They're still using the Frightfur stuff, but maybe a little bit less like disruption stuff, so. Excuse me. Alright, so, yeah, just watching our opponent basically do what we're going to end up doing, more or less. Of course, the standard turn 1 branded Despia play. One of the cool things I like about playing, against this deck, not even just playing with it, but against it, is that, this turn 1 setup doesn't really feel nearly as daunting as, like, I don't know, certain other boards do. I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, looking at you, Halkdon. Well, not for much longer, right? Because, of course, Halk is about to get the old axe there. But, excuse me, once again, let me take a little sip of water here. Yeah, in any case here, so the opponent's able to set up, all the important goodies there, including the branded in red, so I do need to be mindful of that. This Crossout Desginator does make me feel a lot better, because now I know if they flip up branded in red, try to go for a Guardian Chimera, I can just use the Crossout Desginator to call the branded in red. I'd rather not have to do that, but just because I like the idea of resolving a branded in red here during this turn. So yeah, it looks like they have a Super Poly, which isn't too surprising. Gonna fuse my stuff into another blocker for themselves. Alright, the branded fusion is now coming down. The opponent doesn't have an Ash for it, but we can just make use of that Crossout Desginator here. Yeah, just get that out of the way. Get that Ash out of the way, and now let's go ahead and resolve this branded fusion. We are going to have to end up discarding this branded red for the Lubellion, but that's of course totally fine. you know, don't let anything like that stand in the way between like you and victory, right? All right, time to see how this chain link resolves. See, it looks like they're returning their Ad Libitum, going for could it be their own Masquerade? No, they're going for their own Dragostepelia, that is. Alright, now and then we get our stuff here. Alright, now that we have the... Oh, are they playing the... what was that? Oh no, sorry. I thought I saw the... I thought they were playing that trap card branded sword. I have actually been recommended that engine, and not only have I seen that engine, or rather been recommended that engine to try in our current, you know, branded Fusion Despia, branded Despia variant. It's kind of hard to find room for it, but I will say that I've been playing, rather getting used to, not like playing any games quite yet that I feel are like, you know, worthy of sharing again just yet, but I'm kind of dipping my toe into the Tri-Brigade branded deck, and that variant makes use of that little, you know, play there to set up another Mirrorjade, or to set up a Mirrorjade rather, as well as the Revolt into the Searing there. So opponent T setting and passing is absolutely something we love to see here. That's going to give us plenty of opportunities to generate some really solid advantage on the board. We can even, I don't remember if we do end up doing this, but yeah, but you can even, oh shoot, again, once again with losing my train of thought. Wow, I'm just so like spacey tonight. I don't know what it is again. I think it's just I'm recording a little bit later tonight, but in any case here, we're going to go ahead and get back our Mirrorjade. And getting rid of their face down card. Okay, we did actually end up banishing it instead of the opposing Masquerade there. I was trying to remember if that's what we did, but sure enough it was, so yeah. Alright, so yeah, the branded in red is coming down for the opponent. Looks like they're going for a Guardian Chimera here. Sure enough, that is the case. You know, that's a little bit scary, but it's nothing I'm like super duper concerned about, honestly, because yeah, we can just use the branded opening to protect my board. Not really concerned about it. And then yeah, now I can lead with an Aluber going into my turn, and the opponent doesn't really have anything left to I guess kind of fight against us at this point. My own Guardian Chimera coming down is inevitable. Just, you know, a way of answering their Guardian Chimera is pretty much all I need. And I've already got a bunch of high power monsters on board to help close out the game there. Okay, so that's going to do it for these games. Let's go ahead and move now to the outro. I'm sorry, we actually did have one more game here. I did the exact opposite in like the last video or a recent video where I was like, I thought I had one more game, and then I realized, oh, I don't. And this time I was like, oh, I thought I was done, and now I actually have one more game. So this one's actually going to be against Tri-Brigade branded. So I'm actually really glad that I remembered, or rather noticed that I had this game saved, because this will offer a little sneak peek into that deck that I plan on diving into in the near future, like I mentioned. So this is one of the main reasons why I like having Despian Comedy around, is this resolution here, negating the effect failure and allowing our Aluber to resolve. Of course, the Despian Comedy's graveyard-based effect is also pretty good if your opponent is trying to negate your Lubellion with like a Veiler or an Imperm. You can use the Despian Comedy to tribute to Lubellion, and then send it to the graveyard, and then summon the Comedy, and then you know, obviously the Veiler and Imperm won't resolve because the Lubellion's no longer on board. Lubellion will then resolve, and then it'll be kind of business as normal from there, because Lubellion can put the materials back from, you know, the field, I think it's, was it field, grave, or banish, including, like, you know, the actual card itself that's in the graveyard, if it happens to end up there. So yeah, this hand we kind of got like met with every hand trap under the sun, so we kind of just had to end on a Masquerade and nothing else. And then as we see the Chaos, that actually makes a lot of sense to me, because the Tri-Brigade decks have traditionally always run on relatively like small cores, like small engines, so it's a little bit easier to I just kind of like keep track of in that regard. Okay, so yeah, here we're actually seeing the Mercourier get set up with the kit there. And now all 4 are getting banished with the Chaos. Now that'll trigger the Mercourier's effect in order to add, you know, obviously we're going to be getting the, or rather they're going to be getting the branded fusion here. Here I'm using the Despian Comedy effect on the Masquerade just to make sure that it ends up in the graveyard, because if it's in the graveyard as opposed to banished, we can at least bring that back, you know? But the banished one we definitely have a much more difficult time with, so. Okay, so yeah, this is the line I was talking about with the branded sword that I mentioned earlier, right? We're sending, or rather they're sending branded sword to the graveyard to wheel the Mercourier back to their hand, and then now they're going to go into the Vert Anaconda, and then send the branded fusion, and then from there, no, it's pretty much just going to be GG's at that point. Okay, yeah, here comes the kit, and then kit F for the Race Ogre. Yeah, it's been so long since I've played Tri-Brigade. I'm so eager to get back into it. I just actually finished the build just a little while ago, and then I did a couple of test hands in solo mode. I want to do a couple more, definitely, for sure, before I just go into, like, you know, starting to record games, or starting to get games to record, rather, for videos later. I mean, I will say my opponent does have a pretty good, like, board here. I'm not, like, disparaging their game state at all by any means. Okay, so let's see. Here comes the Rugal now. Yeah, obviously they're getting the Revolt with the Bear Boom, setting that up, and now, so we have the 2 Material Appaloosia and a Revolt to play through. There's definitely not, you know, too much that's standing in the way of victory, but it is something we do have to be mindful of. So, good lead with the Aluber here, and this is kind of what I mean by being mindful of it, is using the branded red here in response to the Aluber effect, because just like I was talking about earlier, how, like, you know, if you can get a card that's being negated off of the field, then it's going to resolve. So we actually end up doing that with the Aluber here, again, with the branded red. Now we can go for a Guardian Chimera. We have an excuse to go into it. We have a lot of effects to chain block on top of the Guardian Chimera effect here, so that won't necessarily affect our, like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes that can it can be easy to overlook, right? Geez, again, losing my train of thought. No, that can be easy to overlook, because I see other people doing, like, chain links in, you know, I'll say the wrong order. Of course, there's, like, no right or wrong way necessarily, but there is if you want to chain block in. I think chain blocking is, you know, definitely the optimal thing to do. So, yeah, no, I've seen cases where people will put, like, the Guardian Chimera effect at the very end, and it's like you're just kind of, like, asking yourself to get negated at that point, so. Here, yeah, I'm totally fine with them negating the Despian Tragedy. That's a-okay with me. Oh, and actually, yeah, this was the other thing I was trying to think of just now that I was going to mention with the Guardian Chimera. This is what it is. Because we actually did it in the middle of the chain link where the Shur was being summoned, and of course, you know, chains resolve backwards and all that, and then the Guardian Chimera effect popped the Shurig. And you notice that, you know, we're not getting one of our monsters banished. It's going straight into the search effect. That is something that you can occasionally kind of do, where you can make it so that if you remove a card that's being summoned on, like, blah, gotta start over with my words here. So Shurig, right? Shurig has the ability where if this card is special summoned, you know, you can banish 1 card in the field. If you're able to remove the Shurig during the same chain link that's being summoned, you won't get prompted to, the person playing Shurig won't get prompted to banish a card, just due to, like, how, I think it's, if I recall correctly, it's due to just how, like, game state checks work, right? Because the Shurig isn't on board at the end of the chain link, it doesn't get the trigger there, even though the effect didn't actually get negated. So, yeah, I just want to show that game off because, like I said, I do plan on moving into Tri-Brigade branded relatively soon here. Okay, now that's the last game. Now let's move to the outro. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you so very much for watching, especially all the way to the very end of the video like this. That does mean a lot to me, not just personally, but as a way of supporting the channel there. I'm also grateful to those of you who are commenting and subscribing. I don't know why that took me a second to think of there. Yeah, obviously, again, those are not only great ways to support the channel, but also just do mean a lot to me personally. As always, as ever, if you do have any suggestions regarding the deck build or gameplay, or just the kind of certain kind of videos you want to see on the channel, anything in general, really, just feel free to throw it down there in the comments. I love getting the feedback from you all, and it obviously helps not only me grow as a player, but also everyone else in turn. When you kind of point out that, like, you know, oh, during this turn you could have made like this play and it would have been slightly better. Like, I love seeing comments like that, because it definitely, like I said, directly helps me improve with the gameplay, which, and also, you know, helps all those who are reading the comments there as well. But yeah, that's about all the time I think I've got for this one. So without further ado, this is XLex. I'm signing out, and hope you guys have a fantastic day.